Let's get to the field for a bit. Our correspondent Ola Awakon joins us now live from Ilesha, or Ulesha like they say. Ola, what's the experience like in Ilesha?
Yes, Nifemi, I sincerely in Elisha, I've been there since 7 a.m. moving from one polling unit to the other here in Elisha. And one good thing I have observed since morning is that the people of Osun State, they have come out en masse, to exercise their franchise. This is an exercise that will determine who will become, the next governor of Osun State. And in all the polling units I have been to, it's been peaceful, it's been calm, it's been cool. The first polling units that I was at, before they started, the INEC officials addressed the electorate, telling them what to expect, telling them what to do, which I actually observed was a very good thing, addressing them in Yoruba, addressing them in English, telling them this is how the process is going to go, this is how you are going to, conduct yourselves and all that. So that was one of the, key points that I, picked out, and it made the exercise at that particular polling unit seamless. Also, I visited other places. At the moment, I am at Ifofi Street, Ilesha, Ward 8, Unit 1. That is where I'm standing, and it is exactly 2. The sorting and the counting is, is going to start at this particular point. I have been to Odoja, Ijebu-Ijesha, I've been to Ishida, I've been to Ifofin, I've been to so many other places at Ilesha West. I've been to Akata, Ikotsi, I've been to Ijeda, Iloko, I've been to Ebenezer, and I've thought all the places I've touched so far, it's been peaceful, it's been free and fair. At a particular point, polling units where the candidate of the AD, that is Benga Akitola, voted, I was able to, have a one-on-one with him, and he actually outlined some areas which has to do with, number one, he said where he resides is actually a bit far from the polling unit, and that could, deter the elderly from, moving from that polling, from their place of residence to, to the polling unit where they will cast their ballots. That's one. Then secondly, he also talked about the fact that from the point of accreditation and the point of voting, that you discover that it's going to be vulnerable, because he observed that people were around him, watching him, which could, lead to inducement of voters. And just like I said earlier, I'm at Ifofin, and I want to tell you, one of, the electorate who was here to exercise his franchise and has been, waiting here all the while. I'm talking of the person of Dagunduro Temitokpe. Is going to tell us how the exercise went here before, we go straight into the sorting. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. You're welcome,
your name,
brother.
please.
My name is Dagunduro Temitokpe.
Okay, for confirmation's sake, tell us where are we? Where are we at?
We are in Ifofin, that is Ward 8, Unit 1, and the process is going on very well.
So tell me how it started. The INEC officials, the process, accreditation, voting to this particular time. This is past 2 already, and sorting and counting is going to start in earnest. So tell me how the whole process was.
All right. I've been here since 7 o'clock, and I met the INEC official here around 7 o'clock, arranging the seats, the ballot paper, everything, which going on smoothly, and the election starts at exactly 8 o'clock. Everybody cast their votes. People are here, well arranged, well organized, and there is no chaos. Nobody is fighting anybody, and the vote is going on smoothly. And the election stopped at exactly 2 o'clock. Then after the 2 o'clock, then the counting of the voting begins without any problem.
Okay, the card reader. Was there any issue of maybe delay, any issue of issue with the card reader from anybody here?
The card reader works smoothly. There is no delay, no problem at all with the card reader. The card reader works very well, in which everybody casts their vote. After the card reader might have read the card reader, and after that one, then you will be registered. Then you go and collect your voter's paper. Then you will cast your vote. Then you go. You move on from that place. There's no problem at all.
All right, okay. Thank you very much. You've heard from him. The exercise went smoothly, and the sorting and counting is going to start at the moment. For the people that I was able to speak with, they actually, commended the independent electoral, the INEC, for doing a very credible job. That this is a plus to the elections they've been having in the past. No incidents of, violence. And for the security operatives as well, they all conducted themselves well. For the people who actually exercised their franchise, it was done orderly. No account of violence, no account of vote rigging of any sort. So everything, and at this particular, polling unit where I am in Forfin, you can see now the counting and the sorting has actually, started. They've addressed the agent. Also, I spoke with, at a particular, ward and polling unit, I spoke with all the agents, and all of them said, good things about the exercise, that that they are going to, accept whatever comes out of it because it's credible, free, and fair.
Ola, I want to know, it's good for us to know that you witnessed a relatively peaceful experience in all the places you have visited. But I want to know
Yes.
about how the polling booths were positioned. INEC told us earlier that it was going to reorganize the polling unit, the polling booth, to ensure that voters don't have contact with people who might want to buy their vote and they too will not be able to sell. They also did mention that voters will not be allowed to take their phones into those booths. How did that play out in the places you have visited?
Well, the places I have visited, just like you rightly said, it was, just like you said, it was that particular way. Because they didn't allow, the voter, once you get to the point of voting, you are alone. If it's the only person who mentioned the fact that is where the booth was actually positioned is far from the accreditation point, which made his vote to be vulnerable, is the AD candidate. But for others, their votes and the exercise, their vote was actually, well protected. They exercised, their franchise in an orderly manner, and it was followed to the latest. So that is the situation. Everything went orderly. And Nifemi, I would like to go in now to let you see how the activities of the counting and the voting, how it's the counting and the sorting, how it's going at a particular moment. As you can see, the votes that are void, the votes that are not properly done, they've been cancelled, and all other ballots that have not been used. That's what the INEC officials are doing now, cancelling all the ballots that have not been used, and the party agents are here, well positioned, waiting for them to start, the sorting and the counting. And I can see on the faces of the people here, even the security operatives, everybody is calm, waiting for it. It shows that the entire exercise, was peacefully and orderly. Well conducted.
Ola, we've been hearing some good reports about the performance of card readers, especially with the correspondents I've been able to speak with. What exactly is your experience of the performance of card readers in places you have visited?
Excellent, I'll tell you, excellent. The card reader at all the points that I visited, everyone that I spoke with, because I didn't speak with anybody until after, exercising their franchise. And they all affirmed to the fact that the card reader worked effectively, that it's a pass mark for INEC, as it's a plus compared to the elections that we've had in the past. So that is the situation. The card reader, in fact, all the aspects of this exercise so far has been, well coordinated, and they've given kudos to INEC for doing this. And also, it's not just to INEC alone. The security operatives, conducted themselves well, ensured that everything was peaceful. Not just that, even the electorate as well, because they ensured that everything, went on smoothly. All the electorate, no issues, amongst the party agents, the voters, exercised their franchise orderly, and everything went on smoothly. So, no issue. Just for one person who actually complained that that he didn't see his name, and they asked him to actually use the manual process, which was. But in all, everything has been peaceful and well coordinated here in Elisha.
Before I let you go, Ola, earlier in the year, INEC says that it will electronically transmit and collate elections in 2019 poll, beginning with Ekiti and Osun. Are there signs that once the collation is done where you are, it will be electronically transmitted to the collation center?
Yes, I think that was actually experimented at the Ekiti election, and it was smooth. It was smooth, and that is the same thing that has been replicated here. I have with me our correspondent Rafiu Ahmed, who actually also monitored from the angle of the independent, from the angle of the INEC, and he's here with me. We are together. We've been together in Elisha, and he's going to tell me he's going to tell us his account here. Ahmed, how has it been from your perspective, from your angle, from your area?
So far, so good. The election has been peaceful, credible to an extent, because we've moved around Elisha and we saw what happened. What has been the concern of INEC, the observers, and other major stakeholders did not come into play today. The issue of vote buying. We were in different places, different polling booths. Nothing of such happened. No vote buying, no vote selling. The people conducted themselves in an orderly manner. As early as 7 o'clock this morning, people were already queuing at their various polling units. And even INEC officials, the ad hoc staff, they were on ground as early as possible. That motivated people to come out to see, particularly the issue of security. NSCDC, the police, the Nigerian army, the civil defense, the customs, immigration, and the remaining people. They were on ground to secure lives and ensure that the election is conducted in a very peaceful atmosphere.
Okay, can you confirm the fact that the INEC experimented the issue of electoral, sending the results from here electronically? Can you confirm that at this particular exercise, how it's going to be?
What the resident electoral commissioner told us was that when the materials were being distributed on Thursday, because this time around sensitive materials were distributed on Thursday, 24 hours before the election, and it was a it was a plus for the commission for distributing that materials 48 hours before the election. They told us the electoral materials were tracked, duly tracked, and ensure that all those materials got to their various destinations immediately they left the Central Bank of Nigeria, Osogbo branch. Now, they told us that the result will be transmitted electronically from various local government collation centers. Now, we are at Ward 8, Unit 1. This is where the state governor, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, voted. As we can see, the ballot papers that were not used are being cancelled now. After this process, the election will be sorted. And from here, it will be taken to Ward Collation Center. After that, it will be taken to local government collation center. From there, it will now be transmitted to INEC office in Abuja electronically, as promised by the Independent National Electoral Commission Chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, and even the State President Electoral Commissioner, Olusegun Agbaje.
Okay, at any of the polling units or wards that you visited, was there any account of voter apathy?
Nothing of such, because as you can see, we visited some places, some polling booths along Elisha to Osogbo, Idominasi, and along Buris in Elisha. Nothing of such. The people were on ground, they mobilized to their various polling units. That means that those political parties, the 48 political parties that actually participated in this election, they did a lot of work. Observers, they did a lot of work. Even journalists, they did a lot of work. That has translated to the mammoth crowd that greeted various polling booths in all the places we visited today. And we believe this one will continue to be an improvement. By the time we are in 2019, when general election will be conducted, we believe it will be an improvement on today's election in Osun State.
All right. So that has been the situation so far here in Elisha, and I tell you that everyone is saying, most especially the agents, are saying that whatever the outcome of today's exercise is going to be, they are going to accept it because it's been free, fair, and credible. So we've been on hand, and we are still going to be here until the sorting and the counting is over, and at the same time the results officially announced by INEC, and not any of these groups that we have on social media. The official result will be announced by INEC, and they are saying that is the only result that the people out there should take seriously, and not any other thing. All right, so Nifemi, back to you in Lagos.
Thank you, Ola, speaking to us from Elisha. Keep an eye on development in that area. We'll be back with you subsequently. Well, it might just turn out to be such an election where we'll have a higher number of participation if what we're hearing from the field is the same across all the polling centers in Osun State. Earlier, we were talking about the kind of action movie. I was painting a picture for you, the number of police personnel, and the kind of sniffer dogs, patrol vehicles that they got for this election. On one hand, some are saying that perhaps this is what would give the electorate a feeling of safety, that this process will not be able to be hijacked by, unsuspecting elements. But the challenge is, are we going to have the luxury of these numbers in the general election come 2019?
Well, for me, I think the IG should have taken a step further to create this structure in Zambisa forest so that we can lock down the Boko Haram insurgency. You see, a good police structure would rely more on intelligence. If you gather enough intelligence prior to that time.
They have that as well, according to the
If you gather enough intelligence, you know the flashpoint. That's community policing.
Okay.
You know the flashpoint, you know the troublemakers. You would think out of the box to look at what is the extreme thing that can happen. The more you do is to have a detachment somewhere that at X amount of time they can zero in, not for you to have physical presence there. Even having physical presence, you're going to heighten.
Are you saying the physical presence is not relevant? I mean, bearing in mind that a thug is not likely going to snatch a ballot box when there's a policeman there.
You have answered the question, I've been issued before now. You said when we go to the general election, are we going to have the luxury of that number? So what's going to happen? Even with that number, what happened in Rivers State the last time? What happened in Bayelsa the last time? Were they able to calm it down? They weren't able to do it. The major thing is, look, I used to know the Nigerian police when I was young. If a Nigerian policeman comes to your house, it's a taboo. They were arresting people with batons in their hands. Now with AK-47 and all of that, the police even called the army for backup. What went wrong? What went wrong? There's compromise everywhere. If the police stop compromising and do the job professionally, even just hearing that police will come, people will toughen up. So the police need to be very professional in their dealings and not compromise. But I still believe that intelligence gathering will help us far more.
It's superior to the numbers.
You understand?
The term militarization of election became popular in 2014 during the Ekiti election. And when we had hooded, masked military personnel stormed that part of the country.
And certain insurgents.
There are some who are saying that, well, it has improved. At least what we're counting now are policemen, not soldiers. We don't have, it's not like a war zone like it used to be. Would you agree that there's been an improvement?
Well, I wouldn't want to do a very loose comparative analysis, but I think strongly that what has only changed is the type of personnel on the field. If in 2014 or 2015 we had the militarization of the entire Nigerian space during the elections, I think this time it is the over-policing of the respective states where elections have been held. A couple of months back, we saw how the police filled the nooks and crannies. I said filled deliberately, I didn't say full now. They filled as though you're pouring water in a bottle, the entire land space of Ekiti State. And at about the same period, people in Zamfara were being killed, and not up to 5% of the people deployed to Ekiti were deployed to Zamfara to save the lives of fellow Nigerians. I think that is where the question comes in.
Could it also be as a result of what it's termed as hot zones? Because if you consider the reality, pre the Ekiti election, that there was some sort of drama that ensued that we did not see.
The drama actually, the drama actually happened not because people were being killed. It happens because they were expecting some kind of thing to take place. Political aspirants were talking tough. They were making unsavory statements. The brickbats were very, very, disconcerting and unbecoming of people who hold such lofty political offices. And as he said, I think it is very important to indeed do more of intelligence than physical presence, because that is the way to go, especially if you have to combat crimes the way they come now. For instance, you're talking about the related certificates issue, where it took a newspaper house to get that certain persons didn't acquire the right kind of certificate. Intelligence enabled them to get another physical presence. The DSS and the SSS are in their numbers everywhere, but they could not even detect that somebody didn't get the right kind of, certification that should have been procured. So that tells you that intelligence is superior to physical numbers. So coming back to the state in question here, we will not, as you rightly posited, when you open this segment of a discussion, the luxury of the number of policemen we have been thrown around. You're talking about a country that has, let me put it very loosely, about 500,000 policemen, where you have about one policeman to whether 40, 50, or 60 persons in the country. It doesn't mean you have to judiciously use the numbers you have to avoid the recurrent cases that you usually get to combat when you have elections. It is therefore important between now and next year, that's maybe February of 2019, to see how much we could have our police trained. Because I tell you, these days, for instance, on my way here, part of why I got to the studio where I got to was a police officer was on a motorbike, taking one way. I was driving in the opposite direction, and the policeman insisted that the motorbike rider stay in front of my vehicle and insisted that he take that place. And I stood my ground and said, you cannot wear that uniform and allow such illegality take place at the brazen shower coming down on my head. So I think that the police officers must really do a lot of work, particularly the officers of the Nigerian police, to take away the disgraceful things we often see. The policemen that I grew up with in this country were highly respected, and I have my doubts if at all the respect they used to have still remains, because I have seen police officers, and I have reported time again, police officers sitting without, taking spirits by the roadside. That uniform must be respected. The rank, the file, the men, the officers must be respected. And I think it's a whole lot of work that the leadership of the Nigerian police must do to help this country become sanitized, because we're a sane people after all.
We'll get back to the issue of security for the ongoing Osun election. Let's take some reports now. Earlier, the governorship candidate of the Accord Party, Olakpade Okunla, voted in the election. He commended the election as being free and fair.
So far has been free and fair with what I've seen in this ward and other centers. The people are very orderly, and the INEC officials are very cooperating. At the same time, the machine card reader is working perfectly well. I see a very good organization.
That appears to be the feelers that we've been getting from Osun. Commendation for INEC, commendation for the electorate. And no matter how you feel about the police, you can't take it away from the security operatives, the role they have played in this particular election. But I'm concerned about some of the other things that happened. For instance, Osun was locked down 12 a.m. and it's going to be locked down till 6 p.m. Must we shut down a whole state because we're having an election?
I don't think we should. I don't think we should. I mean, election is like every other process. People would want to. Some people would not want to. Some people, remember that Osun is also a gateway state to other states. So you are locking down the economy of other states because of a process that will not last for 24 hours and all of that. It doesn't really make sense. What makes sense is that we should be able to cross our T's very well and dot our I's. It's about planning. You plan very well and you achieve great results. So you need to go back to intelligence, go back to your drawing board and plan effectively. So if we're going to have a general election, we'll be closing our airspace. It means that planes won't fly into the country, our waterways won't work again, and we just shut down the country down. I mean, it doesn't really make any economic sense.
I think more important here is also the independence of the police, because in Ekiti, for instance, it was alleged that the issue of vote buying gained that such a great ground because of the alleged complicity of security operatives. Perhaps they just looked the other way while all of that was going on. But this time around, we saw the police take a stance, and they got a directive from their top, echelon of authority saying that this is the way to go. How far before we get that kind of independence?
If you look at the historical antecedents in Ekiti, the paperwork are the same as that of Osun State. You have a governor in Ekiti State that has brazenly abused the president, that has brazenly abused every leadership of the opposition, that has actually said if anything falls on him, the thing get crushed. If he falls on another, it get crushed. The language unsavory, the approach very uncivilized. And of course, this is a man that appears to be the only opposition voice long before all others came out of their slumbering positions to continue to speak against the president. Even when the president was away, you don't expect such a state to just be handled with loose hands, because the body language, the verbal utterances in itself are not the same. So, but if you look at Osun State, for instance, a governor of the party at the center has been in control for 8 years. The allegiance is one and same. The direction cannot be altered. The coordination is well understood. So you cannot use both, or maybe actually measure both on the same grounds. So it is expected for you to have such situations where the rank and file of the police will be aligned such that, well, this is the man we've worked for the past 8 years. We just have to agree. And of course, don't forget that this same man is the man whose party leads at the center where the authority itself comes from. So these are the variances that we must take cognizance of. But after all of that, we must also look at the police. For instance, some days ago, we heard at some point that the police gave a particular report about one of the aspirants in the elections that is wanted, and maybe a certain other wanted, for examination malpractice. Two things that Nigerians must begin to question. The speed with which the police did the investigation is still phenomenal, whereas there is a particular pending case that we've not even heard official position of the NYSC from. Now, the same police is involved in both cases. So I'm wondering why such took longer, and yet there's no official position.
No, the police invited the candidate
the point is,
for
it's
criminal
a case where they
investigation.
brought, see, I like us to put the right picture. This organization is watched from every part of the world. And anytime we put things forth, for the sake of posterity, let us put it loud and clear. I'm here today, so other persons could be here tomorrow, but let's say it as it is. I'm saying that the police must do the best it could always to not be seen as taking side. That's just it. Because it is an institution of government, and government essentially must be about the people. If you look at it, a statement was given less than maybe 1-2 hours after the president said nobody should be arrested. I know that the police is an extension of the executive arm of government, but the police as a body is expected to be an independent body of government and responsible essentially to the people in all it does.
As much as Mr. President's interference has been commended by many, there are others who are also saying that if Mr. President could stop the police from investigating, then how independent really is the police?
That is
but let's take a
position.
coffee break, and then when we come back, we'll explore more of this development on Osun votes. Stay with us.
Sincerely, the president would have done.
next 4 years. And we are here monitoring developments, bringing you in-depth review and analyses of what's happening on the field. Amazingly, we seem to be hearing some good news from our correspondents saying that it's been peaceful thus far. But remember that election is a process. So we've seen a peaceful campaign. We've seen quite peaceful accreditation and voting exercise. But then the biggest part is the collation and the official announcement of result by INEC. I have Ayodele Adiwale and Adeni Kunu with me in the house. Thank you for staying the course.
Thank you for having us.
So we're talking about security during election, and it's amazing that, in my opinion, from what we've heard on the field, it appears the number of policemen sent to Osun, they seem to be doing some work, whether directly or indirectly. The DIG said that they were also working with the DSS, that there will be some officers who are not wearing uniform, you know, to get intelligence, like you said earlier. How do we keep this up in a general election?
Well, perhaps they are working with the maxims that says that if birds learn to fly without wings, then the hunters will learn to shoot without missing. But I think the right way to go is orientation. If I was to advise, I think electoral processes should be embedded in our educational curriculum.
That's right.
And how do I mean? From kindergarten, you normally will have a class captain. In primary school, you have a class captain. In secondary, even tertiary.
That's right.
Now, you allow the student, just as we fought Ebola in Lagos, from kindergarten, the children were taught that when you have a handshake, you go to the loo, you go whatever, you quickly wash your hands. Now, the teacher comes and try, you know, to embed this thing so that whenever they want to choose a class captain, everybody will queue, you know, to vote for them. You allow them give manifesto at will and all of that. You make it very exciting and enjoying. So as you grow up, it becomes part of you. So when we now get into the major play, as we are in now, already we have the culture. 1, of tolerance. 2, of organization. 3, of dissuading any electoral lackey that tend to take our norms away from what is idealistic and real. Then the police also will have less of work to do because they would have been scheming, you know, their activities along with curriculums that are embedded in education. At that point, you have educated a mass of people that understand what these processes are, and you won't see any. But that is not to say that you will not have some fifth columnist. It's quite impossible. That at least it will reduce the tempo, it will reduce the work and the hardship. Then we have almost a seamless process of elections.
For the first time in a long time, prior to this particular election, there were about 4 debates for the Osun election, the most prominent of which held on Thursday by TVC, and inspired quite a number of reactions from social media. There are people who are saying that we need to get to that point where candidates will be bold enough to come out, argue their points out, convince the electorate about how they intend to lead if they get the chance. Do you see this culture, you know, growing and becoming a norm even before the general election?
I think it is very, very important, and of course puts the aspirants in proper position and enables the people that are to vote to have their opinions better shaped about the aspirants. And I also think it's a show of responsibility on the part of those aspiring to offices to be able to stand and let the people understand what indeed they have for them. It is very, very important. You do not win any election in America, essentially, without your ability to convey what you have for the people. In Britain, for instance, there are plans underway where they intend to take, you know, all of the things like debate before the elections away from maybe the people. They want to make it something that is subjected to legal documents. You know, more or less like legislate that these debates must be essentially part of the process of becoming, you know, getting into elective offices, because you have to do that. For instance, if you look at Nigeria, without a doubt, has the highest number of expatriates if you go to, let me take the US, for the most educated. Then Nigeria will want to hold elections. You find out that the president at some point, if you look at what happened during the Jonathan administration, it's a ridiculous thing. Nigeria is too great to have such ridiculous things happen. If you want to aspire to any lofty office in this land, even if your accent has phonolinguistic interference of your mother tongue, we know that it can happen. Just come talk to us. Let us know if we even understand the number of local governments in your community and what the local government itself has. It is very important. But you find out that, for instance, the one you have, part of the aspirants that should have come did not come. That in itself is a disrespect to the people. Because you must be able to stand and tell the people you are to represent.
Perhaps because they are not under compulsion to come.
Excuse me, you do not. The point is, you are not. If you're saying the people are not under compulsion to come, then I think you should not also be under compulsion one way or the other to see yourself deemed or to see yourself fit enough to occupy the office. You should be able to respect the people you want to represent and say, if you could go around doing campaigns, is it standing before the cameras on television? That would be something that would kill you or what?
I was going to ask that, is it relevant to have this legislated?
Very, very relevant to have it legislated. Very, very relevant that if you don't appear, you get sanctioned or lose the opportunity to represent people.
The fallout of that, just a minute, would now be the value of eloquence. Because the fact that you can talk well doesn't also really translate that you will be a good leader. So how do you see this play out?
You see, what you have just said now is like having a very good nuke, a very good nuclear weapon, and there is no jet to deliver it. You understand? No matter how good your idea is, if you cannot communicate, then the idea is dead.
So you're saying every leader must know
every leader
how
must
to communicate.
You must know how to communicate. It's not about being rhetorical or being a very good speaker. You speak beautifully, public speaking and all of that. No, you must be able to communicate, even if it's in your mother tongue. Oh, I want to build this cup for you. You need water, but we need a very good cup for you to take water. I must be able to tell you that this is the best cup for you. You understand? I must be able to tell you why I made it white or blue or yellow, as the case may be. You understand? You must be able to understand it. Not that I think I know. Then I might not know how to solve your problems.
Even in developed climes, we have seen debates within political party for primary election, or where we've seen aspirants come out to, convince delegates of their party why they should be voted into power. And the good thing is that there are quite a number of them. So if you mess up in the first one, you go to the second one to improve your chances and all of that. But then, beyond all of this, the idea is to hijack the system from political structures and give it back to the electorates. How far do you see us getting to that point in this part of the world?
You're going to have hijack when the people are not allowed to see or to mirror the kind of people that want to govern them. And I think in this respect, INEC need to work with the media, not just the media organizing the debate. It will be an INEC debate sponsored by the media, you understand? And you must come to tell the people what you have. Even if a political party is sponsoring you, the party has a program, you must be able to understand the program of the party to the extent that you can deliver it through a message. Understand? That is known as communication. If you cannot do that, you're not worth serving in that office. You don't worth it. Otherwise, you are going to squash the opportunity that party has or that individual have.
Adeniyi, the implication of having a free, fair, and credible election is that it builds trust in the electorate. They believe that if I can go out in the sun or in the rain, eventually my vote will count. Now, we've seen a relatively peaceful process. Now, this is the point where coalition is taking place. And sometimes the wait might be a bit long, especially on the part of voters who are interested to find out who wins or who comes out winner in an election. Now, what would you tell that kind of a voter at a time like this?
Well, I think that we are evolving as a people. And if you look at where we were in 2015 and you look at what is happening today, even if this election is actually going on in the state, we can indeed say that it's an improvement if we compare it to the last one we've had. And it can only make the electorate itself be hopeful that if there are changes such that this one is effective, such that people are out, such that participation is very interesting, I think strongly that the electorate can only be hopeful.
Just a minute. Let's
Okay,
go to Ile-Ife, where TVC News correspondent Ibrahim Alege is standing by. Ibrahim, I've been hearing some good reports. I hope you have one for me.
Particularly at Irema Ward 2, where I am currently. They sorted, or they are even sorting the ballot papers now, looking at which political party has this one so that they can sort them, subsequently count them. Earlier, the non-used ballot papers have been cancelled out by the electoral officers. So now people are standing by to see them count these ballot papers one after the other. And people cannot wait for these. Some are even agitated that once you show them the ballot paper, they still want to mention that no, the party that this person has voted that he voted for this ballot paper is party B. So once you read it up, they now see the day is party A or party B or party C, then you drop it at a particular place for that party A and so on and so forth like that. So at times they tell the electors that no, this one is for it. This one is for A and this one is for B. People have been participating actively, and the security guys are also alert. I think that it doesn't become unruly. So that's what's going on right now. And we learn more what is there.
So apparently, Ibrahim, sorting is ongoing, meaning that voting exercise has ended. How did the card readers perform where you visited? Was there any need to use an incidents form?
But voting has, been completed in some parts because we have some wards where we have a very large number of electors. That one, they cannot conclude voting in such a place. For instance, where Senator Yola initially voted, of course, we have lots of polling units at that particular ward. So that, I doubt it would have been ended by now. But as at where I am now, of course, it has ended because nobody's coming out again at 2 p.m. But in some other places, because of the multitude of voters, they still have them, they're still being allowed to cast their vote. In all the places that I've gone to, there hasn't been any complaints about, card reader machine. But just the slowness of the card reader machine in some polling units, but at least it works. For instance, the SDP candidate, Senator Yola Mishore, also complained about slowness of the card reader machine, and these actually account for why in some places the election has not been concluded. But at where I am now, Remo was, of course, been completed. So it's all about sorting of the ballot papers, and subsequently they will be cancelled.
From your experience, Ibrahim, was INEC and security operatives able to fight or win the battle against the vote buying in this election?
But to a very large extent, because the ballot box, the cubicle is at the corner where people are not allowed to see it, except only those who are going to vote, at least in most of the places that I visited. And even some of the observers actually commended INEC about this, because just going in there, you're not allowed to take your phone to it, not talk of snapping whatever party you voted for. So you just go in there, then cast your vote, then drop it in the box and do it. So I think they've been, trying as much as possible to ensure that, other people do not have access to whichever party you vote for. So there's that secrecy to a very large extent. But you see have some other polling units that is like business as usual, where people start to see people and see what you're doing, especially where you have multitudes of polling units. For instance, at Oromio building, that's the shopping complex there. You have lots of polling units there. It's a bit rowdy there. So it may not be easy to, attain the level of secrecy that INEC rather wants to achieve. But at some other polling units where people are not allowed to see what's going on inside the cubicle, that can be minimized. Talking about vote buying.
What, in your opinion, is the performance of security operatives in those polling units you visited?
Yes, of course, they are trying. In fact, they parade the streets of Ile-Ife in convoy. We met the head of the police, trying for this duty, who was in our city yesterday. So, going around the major streets. Even the army officials were also going around the major streets. But some of us have to be stopped. Even if you identify yourself as a journalist, you have all the necessary cards from INEC. No, that's not enough. They still demand for an ID card. Because they said they actually arrested some persons, whether observers or not, in INEC fitted uniform. And at the end of the day, they realized that they don't have their own official ID card to identify them. So some of them, they said they will not allow them to operate. But apart from the INEC kit, you are also expected to have your own official ID card from your organization. So at least some security men are fixed on that. Well, some allow you to go. Of course, some persons were also arrested along the line because they said they were ruling, some were fighting. But we saw two persons were arrested by the police. They were in charge of inquire. They were trying to cause trouble, so that was why they arrested them. So they've been up and doing them. Just a couple of minutes ago, there was an helicopter moving around Ife and its environs, and there are convoys of security authorities moving around major streets to ensure that everything goes and that major junctions you find the police blocked so that people will not just pass in ease. So even if you want to pass, you have to identify yourself very well.
Ibrahim, thank you very much for your update there from Ile-Ife. Keep an eye on the sorting and collation, and we'll be back with you subsequently for more updates. Okay, so interesting to know that it's still the good reports that we started with from Ile-Ife. Voting has ended in some parts, and there are still places where there are a huge number of people on queues and they have to attend to them all. Earlier, we made mention about the number of candidates that participated in this election. And one of the, usual occurrences is that a day or two before the actual election day, you begin to hear rumors of one candidate stepping down for another, collapsing the structure to support another. How do you think this should be managed, especially when your name and your party is already on the ballot?
I think those who collapse certain existing structures don't really have structures. Because if you have structures in place, the structure should be functional enough to produce the results you desire to achieve. So in the absence of any structure that is functional, such that it could help you achieve your aspiration, then ab initio, there never was a structure. So perhaps they've decided to obnub for a moment, see what opportunities they could actually get, and since they know that the hopes for them is as dim as low voltage, they have to align quickly and get whatever thing they should get, more or less like the crumbs. But that said, I think this again has ensured that INEC's work is cut out for it. Because any time you find that there is an opening somewhere, as I say in law, there's a lacuna somewhere. The lacuna gives you room to analyze the situation, block that hole, and find solution. So for INEC again, I think to make some of those things less cumbersome, INEC should review the conditions for making sure that people participate in such elective positions. All right, you want to become a political party, no problems, you would not be debarred from doing that. But meet certain conditions. If you're able to show that you have structures across the 36 states of the Federation, you're able to have at least an office or maybe a constituency office, because there are times you really need to review. I said at the beginning here, so that I will clarify, not to sound as if I'm countering my own position. I said it is good for people to vote and be voted for. I said it is important for people to participate in elections. I said it's important for people to accede to the provisions of the Constitution, in which everybody who finds itself on that 48-man list has
Please,
done.
would you just kindly hold your thought? I have feel as that our correspondent in Ejigbo is standing by now. Ivy Kano, what's happening there? As expected, as the voting ended?
Nifemi, it has. It actually started as early as 8, and we got to Ejigbo local government area at about 7:30. Already the turnout was massive. We saw people already on queue at that time of the day, and they were, they queued in a very peaceful manner. The turnout here was good. We visited a lot of units, and where we are now is unit 014. The turnout is the same for every unit that we visited. So I think the people here are very determined to cast their vote.
We've heard some amazing reports about how the card readers have functioned in other places. What is your experience like?
Okay, there was this particular unit that they had issue with their card readers, but that was rectified, and the people patiently waited for the card reader to function before they started again using the card readers. So it was a one-off where we went to.
What about the war against vote buying? How did that play out in places where you visited? We learned that phones were not allowed into the polling booth. We understand also that the polling booths were arranged in such a way to ensure that vote buying is not allowed. What exactly did you see on the field?
There was no such thing like vote buying here in Ejibo. We tried even getting shots outside where we had the voters, but there was nothing like that. I wouldn't know if it happened in any other place, but it didn't happen in Ejibo local government area where we are.
Hopefully politicians have not devised better ways to give the electorate money.
Yeah,
But
I think so. I think so.
what exactly is happening where you are? Sorting, collation, and are there still electors around there hanging out to monitor the process?
Anyway, it's already to 3, and most people you are seeing behind me, they've already voted, but I think they are anxiously waiting for the votes to be counted. I saw some few people with, they are not even party agents, and they have books, a size book and pen. You know, they are ready to also follow the process through, waiting for the votes to be counted so they could write it. So I'm sure at the end of the day, the parties are going to reconcile the numbers that was counted and, you know, the numbers that was written by some of these people behind me. They are all waiting for the votes to be counted.
So the police came to Osun with a huge number of personnel. We're looking at 40 units of tactical operation squads. There is a Deputy Inspector General of Police, 8 commissioners of police, 30 armored personnel carriers, as well as 300 patrol vehicles. In your experience, how have they performed thus far in places you have visited?
Like we spoke with the DIG yesterday in the studio, I think he said something like they've done Ekiti, they've done Anambra State, so they were really prepared for Osun election. So they had to check out, you know, some flashpoints in Osun like Ede, you know, and Elisha and the rest of them, and they brought enough main. So far, it's been peaceful, you know, and I like to tell, you know, use some of these security men, especially the army, to know that we have equal stake in how successful this turns out. At times, one was very, very, very harsh to my cameraman, and I think that wasn't very okay.
Can you tell me precisely what happened?
By the time we got here at Ejibo, the army personnel that, you know, mounted the roadblocks said we couldn't get into the village, and we're like, we showed him everything. We showed him the cap. He said there's no way he will allow us in. So he had some altercation with my cameraman, and I think he didn't handle it well as a security man. He should know that the journalists here, we are also here to ensure the process goes through in a very smooth manner.
Well, that's a case of an overzealous official. I hope that is not duplicated in other parts of the state. But then feed us in as well. In a couple of hours now, results should be transmitted to the collation center, and everyone is awaiting to hear the official results from INEC. I'm concerned about the electorates. How have they, you know, conducted themselves during this exercise?
Like I was discussing with somebody, I think this is about the most peaceful election I have covered. We've not experienced any violence. You know, even at there's a particular junction we got to and they were not allowed to because where their polling units was extremely far, so they needed to use a vehicle to get there. They weren't, there's no movement obviously, but a police van came and, they were kind enough, they begged, they said, okay, all of you, show me your voter's card, and they did. And he was able to take them to their various, I think that was commendable.
I can tell.
The security agents have done well, and the voters have done absolutely marvelous.
I can tell, Ivy, that it's been a peaceful experience for you because your makeup is still intact. You are calm, cool, and collected. Can you hear me, Ivy? Hello, Ivy.
Hello, Nifemi, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me? Okay, Ivy Kano is reporting from Ejigbo in Osun State, and I can tell that it's peaceful from the way she's cool, calm, and collected, and that perhaps has been generally the reports we've got from reporters on the field. And she talked about a case of an overzealous army official who would not allow them access a village during an election. And that brings us back to what we discussed earlier, the fact that many of the foot soldiers do not even have their hand on the information and rule of engagement at times like this. How do you react to that?
Well, I think that we have to go a step further because every officer of the law is beneath the law. The law is always supreme to everybody. And the same law that applies to the military officer applies to the police officer, also applies to the civilian, particularly the sovereignty of the Constitution. So I think that maybe the rank and file or the supremos of the military must also do some kind of sensitization. I think that that particular person acted in ignorance, because if that person understood that the times have changed and the rules of engagement at this election has also changed, or have also changed, such a person would not have prevented journalists from doing their work. And I think they really should also find out why such persons is doing that. Because if an individual who should understand better acts that way, especially preventing the journalists from, for instance, if you have maybe an opposition observer come to such a place, the observer has every right to also go there.
That's right.
If the military officer prevents the observer from going there, that is contrary to what should have happened, and the person could raise it up and maybe take it to court. So I think that Ivy Kano has mentioned that in Ejigbo. Maybe she needs to provide more information later for such a person to be cautioned, because before you know, it's February and we're having elections, or in March and we're having elections. So I think it's very important.
You know, our correspondent Femi Akonde from Ela also made mention the encounter he had with a security operative who did not want him to use his phone because it was close to the polling booth. The challenge now is, even though we are saying we seem to see a fair conduct on the part of security operatives, but then passing the information from top to bottom is an issue they have to address.
Yeah, that is very true. It means that the senior officers there must understand the rules very well, and they must be able to communicate it down to the junior officers. I think what they should be looking at more is the tags. Each and every one of those reporters will have an accreditation tag.
That's right.
That, of course, should have a chip or whatever it is that can be used to verify whether the person is genuine or not. And if that is provided, all the security operative need to do is just to follow up by checking this person's rightly, check the ID card, check this. They can also ask 1 or 2 questions, because beyond that, you can have phony people having those tags. So there's some question a very high intelligent officer will ask you, even if you have those tags, and if you cannot meet up with those questions, then he or she will have to call back to their command center in order to get clearance for you. But that is not to say that they have to, bridge the movement of reporters. You don't do that. It will even help their own. That's right. Their own functions.
You know, it's almost boring to report an election that is credible, that is free and fair. There are no there are no drama, there are no ballot snatching. Maybe over time we'll get used to this. Is this a new page that is being turned in the electoral history of our country? Is it a litmus test, like some would say, for the general election come next year?
You've mentioned 2 things. First, you talked about it being maybe signs of good things to come, and you also talked about it being litmus test. For both, I say yes. Any success achieved is important towards doing another one that will be applauded. And at the same time, you do not bask in the euphoria of your success to forget that with every success you make in life, some other persons have noted and want to outwit you and make it sound or appear as if you have not done anything.
That's right.
So for INEC and for Nigeria, I do not think we have to look at this success, as it were, as something that is maybe something we should not get familiar with. We've always yearned for something positive.
That's right.
We always looked out for having elections that are free and fair. So we have to come to terms with these that we have achieved.
And
our minds, we have to acclimatize. And that is why at times when you find out that maybe suddenly power comes out, maybe power is restored.
That's right.
After hours, people shout up whatever. They just mention names here. So people are calm and saying, wow, is this something happening? So it's a positive that we must try to consolidate.
Let me just hold you for a bit and head over to Ede.